Should I focus on residential or commercial? What's up, y'all? Today's question comes from Adam Green, and he asked, if I were to start my business over again, would I focus on commercial or residential? So that was technically the question that was asked, but I want to kind of broaden it out to, you know, make it make more sense to more people. And honestly, you don't have to pick. So you can certainly do both, right? So, you know, what I'm gonna do in this video is go over, you know, some pros and cons of residential versus commercial clients, and maybe that'll gain you some insight to what you would prefer to deal with. But you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, you can certainly, you know, mow a home, mow a business, mow a house, mow office complex, mow an estate, mow, you know what I'm saying? You can do both. So you don't have to pick one or the other, but I like the question, and I think there's reasons that you would want to do one over the other and stuff like that. And obviously, depending on your area, is gonna you know, determine what would be more ideal as far as like running a business that's profitable. If there's no businesses around in your area, it's a very residential area, it would make more sense to focus on the residential market. If you're in a really heavy business district area, whatever, you know, focus on those. So it just comes down to what you are trying to do with your business. At the end of the day, it's your business, you get to pick. And here is some stuff that I picked up from working for both types of clients for many, many years, and hopefully it sheds some light on this topic for you. Okay, so we're gonna go over some pros and cons of residential and commercial clients. So and just so you know, like, these are in general, typical, most case, usual, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's no set in stone here. So I understand that you'd be like, well, no, not this. I get it. I understand, but I'm just saying, you know, more often than not, this is gonna be the case if you're going residential or you're going commercial, and there's gonna be exceptions to the rule. We understand that. Okay, so typically when you are doing residential, if you're gonna focus on residential, you can expect to need to service many more properties, right? Just meaning that the typical, like, value of that client, like the yearly value of a residential client, is typically far less than the value of a commercial client. And yeah, there's all kinds of variables, but just in general, you know, a residential client, maybe that account's worth $1,500 to $3,000 a year, depending on what services they get. Obviously, it could be way less, it could be way more. But you know, you get to like 20 or 30,000 square foot of turf commercial complex that has a parking lot. They need snow removal. They need all this other stuff. Like, obviously, it's going to cost more money. So you'll need a lot more residential customers most of the time to get a higher revenue business, but who cares about revenue? We're really going after profit. So that's just something to keep in mind. There'll be a lot more stops, a lot more drive time. Routing will be a bigger thing, and stuff like that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. A lot of times residential clients only get one service. Very rarely did we pick up a commercial client where we only did one service. So if you are really just focusing on, like, we just want to mow, which there's nothing wrong with just mowing. You can make a lot of money just mowing. If you just want to mow, then doing commercial work may not be a good idea, because they're probably going to want you to mulch and want you to prune and this kind of stuff. So maybe you could work out a relationship with another company that potentially doesn't mow, or you just sign a non-compete and they're not going to take those customers, blah, blah, blah. But that opens a whole nother can of worms that company can do something which would reflect poorly on you. So just be cautious with that. Residential clients are typically more like personal. So what I mean by that is, it's gonna be like how that relationship goes is gonna be more heavily determined on how, you know, well liked you are by the homeowner. and potentially the wife and the kids and even the dog maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's gonna be more of an emotional relationship. In my experience, that's how it went. So if you're not a real personable person, maybe going the commercial route would be more along those lines. You'll be dealing with, like, you know, some kind of account manager or something at the company, and they really don't want to be bothered with this stuff. They just want you to take care of it. As long as you're showing up, the work's getting done, you send them the bill, they pay the bill, it's all good, and you don't really have to deal with anybody. So, you know, use your personality to determine, do you really like dealing with the people, or would you rather just deal with more of a business that's just like, just do the job, like we paid you to do the job, just do the job, instead of, you know, Miss Smith who wants you to come over and talk to her for 5 minutes on her back patio before you head out. You know what I'm saying? So that's something to think about. Okay, on commercial, so when you get into commercial properties, you're more than likely gonna want to get a contract or an agreement in place. So if you're not comfortable with contracts and agreements and signing stuff, then maybe you don't want to do the commercial route. So when you get into commercial work, another thing you need to understand is they may have net 30, net 60, net 90, or even crazier terms than that. So what that means is you send them the invoice, say it's net 90 terms, per the contract, they have 90 days to pay you. So you're essentially fronting, fronting, it's an old term we used to use a lot, just kidding. You're essentially loaning them the services, right? Like you're financing it for them in a way. Like you're paying your guys, you're paying the notes on your equipment, you're paying for the gas, you're paying for insurance, all this stuff, but you're not going to be you're not going to be compensated for that for 90 days. And if they have net 90-day terms, you can bet that check's coming on like day 88 to 90. Like they aren't paying it early. There's a reason there was net 90 terms, and they're gonna use that. So don't think they're gonna, yeah, we had net 90 terms, but they're gonna pay us in 2 weeks. No, that ain't gonna happen. When you get into commercial properties, something to definitely keep in mind is insurance requirements, because this could actually reduce your profit across the board, like not just for them, because obviously you're gonna, if you have to bump up your insurance, it's gonna raise your overhead, which is gonna lower your profitability everywhere. So this actually happened with FedEx. We redid and signed a 5-year contract with them after doing, like, I think we did the grounds maintenance for 2 years, and then they said, hey, we want you to sign this 5-year contract, and I was hesitant because of how gas could go up and cost of living and all this stuff. Like 5 years was just too long of a contract in my opinion. But what really made me mad about that was after we came to terms on the 5-year contract, I submit all the paperwork and all this, and they're like, oh yeah, well, we actually redid our insurance requirements. You need to bump this up and bump this up. And it ended up costing like $600 more a year in insurance so we could actually keep the contract. And I went ahead and did it, but that was bogus in my opinion. That was a straight, really shady move on their part. I don't know if they did it intentionally or anything. I'm not saying anything about FedEx in particular, but I'm just saying watch out for that. That happened to me, it can happen to you, and I just don't want it to you know, hurt your business. Like it didn't really hurt my business. I obviously sold it a couple months later, but you know what I'm saying. And then the last thing you should consider is just equipment. Like, do you have the equipment to mow a 300 square foot of turf property? Like, you're not gonna wanna do that on a 48-inch walk behind. Like, you're gonna at a minimum want a 60-inch zero turn to mow 300,000 square feet of turf. So if you're solo and getting going, yes, you can get by with it and probably still make a little money and that kind of stuff. But when you get to like running a business, you need to really get the right equipment for the job to be profitable. So if you don't want to get these big mowers, if you're like, we're mainly residential, should we get a 60 or 72-inch zero turn to go cut this one property? Can we even use it on these small properties? I personally think really big stripes on little small residential lawns just looks ridiculous. So just think about the equipment you have and what can you use it for? What is its best use going to be? What kind of equipment would you like to get in the future? So if having this big stuff is not in the plans, then maybe stick to the residential side. And there's plenty of commercial places that are smaller, banks, restaurants, all that kind of stuff that you can get by with a 36, a 30, or a 48 or whatever. So you know, everything varies here, but that's just those are the things that I would consider. And then always just keep in mind, the more equipment you add, the bigger your equipment gets, the more rental space or space in general you're gonna need. You're probably gonna rent, you know, maybe buying a building would be the best scenario, but oftentimes as a business, it's better to lease or rent. So, you know, if servicing these commercial clients is gonna require an additional storage unit or additional shop, or, you know, X $100 per month for whatever to store all this bigger stuff, that may make it not worth it or less appealing and stuff like that. So and another thing is, typically residential lawns are closer together. So even though there's you know, the dollar value per service is typically lower, you could do, you know, if you're cutting 3, 4, 5, 6 houses at a stop, then it like kind of levels it out and actually pushes you know, profitability into the favor of the residential side. Like if I had to pick one or the other, I would probably do residential. Like I would probably do residential. You just run into a lot of issues. There's a lot more invoices going out, potential for a lot more AR issues and stuff like that. So those are the handful of things that I would think about, and some pros and cons that I've experienced over the years. I'd love to hear what you guys have experienced in your business. Please leave it in the comments if you would care to do so. And until the next video, keep making money.